In 2008, a report was made by a former employee of Madoff Securities. This report was filed to the SEC detailing suspicious trades that he had witnessed at the firm and pointing to the fact that many of the returns reported by the company were not legitimate. To say the SEC was unconcerned would be an understatement. They took no action whatsoever after this report was filed. And just 4 months later, another complaint was filed by a different former employee. This time it was to NASD, another regulatory body overseeing brokers. Again, nothing came of it. In total, there were over 40 complaints filed to various financial authorities about Bernard Madoff between 1991 and 2008, which is absolutely crazy. But even with all these complaints, no action was ever taken against him until it was too late for so many people. So what did he do to get away with one of the largest financial frauds in history? Well, in today's video, we're going to try and answer that exact question. Let's start. Bernard L. Madoff, born in Queens, New York, was like any other ambitious young man in his early 20s. He wanted to make money. After graduating from Hofstra University with a business degree in 1960, he got a job as a clerk at the NASDAQ stock market and spent some time working for several brokerage firms before establishing his own firm called Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities in 1970. The firm started out as a market maker specializing in penny stocks, which are stocks with a low price that are often considered to be risky investments. His firm would buy and sell these stocks to give the appearance of liquidity or the ability to easily convert them into cash. However, behind the scenes, they would actually hold very few of these penny stocks. It was a little white lie to begin with. However, this wasn't illegal, and the firm thrived, growing exponentially during the 1970s and 80s. And it was around this time that Madoff created his infamous split-strike conversion strategy. This strategy seemed legit and would bring in a steady stream of income for his firm. So you might be wondering, how could such a clever guy who was successful in the financial markets, well-dressed, well-spoken, and well-educated pull off such a massive fraud? Well, one of his most valuable assets was the reputation that he had cultivated over decades in the market. People trusted him because of his reputation, and as we can see from the many complaints that were filed against him, many people had their suspicions about him. But unfortunately, no one really looked into it. They just chose to trust the respected Mr. Bernard Madoff. Now, when we talk about trust, especially in the financial world, it is such a powerful thing. It can either propel your career to new heights or destroy you completely. In Madoff's case, it propelled him to unimaginable wealth. You see, one of the most important aspects of Madoff's investment strategy was to conceal the truth. He carefully hid the details of his trading activities and used complex language to confuse regulators and clients. For example, he used terms like split-strike conversion and theta, which are options trading strategies designed to generate income from the passage of time, rather than from capital gains. Now, while these strategies are actually used by hedge funds, Madoff claimed to use them to generate unrealistically high returns for his clients. By using this type of confusing language, he was able to avoid scrutiny from regulators who didn't understand the complexity of his strategy. Here's where the story takes a turn. Unlike many other hedge fund managers who charge performance fees based on the profit that they make, Madoff only charged a small annual advisory fee. This fee was usually around 1% of the assets under management. So why would someone go to Madoff instead of a regular fund manager if they both invest in the same things and the advisor only charges a small fee? Well, it was because Madoff claimed to have a secret strategy that made him almost impossible to lose money. His clients believed that he was using these complex strategies to generate big returns without taking much risk. So they entrusted him with their money, and he kept getting richer and richer while everyone else thought he was a genius. But the truth was far from it. The reason why Madoff didn't charge performance fees was because he wasn't actually making any profit. Instead, he was running a classic Ponzi scheme. He was paying the returns to existing investors from the money invested by new investors. When new investors came along, he paid older investors with their own money. It was a vicious cycle. Here's a simple example. Say 3 people invest $100 each. Now Madoff pays the first person $10 in profit and then uses the second person's money to pay the third person $10 in profit. Now he has $10 from the third person and uses it to pay the first person another 10. This way everyone seems to be making money, but it's just a transfer of money. No actual profit is being made. Instead, you are making money from other people putting in new money. But as you can imagine, eventually you will run out of other people's money. And that is exactly what happened. When the economy slowed down and new investors stopped putting money in, Madoff didn't have enough money to pay everyone. This was back in 2008 when the US housing market collapsed and banks like Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. It was hard for anyone to raise money during this time. As more and more people tried to withdraw their money from Madoff, he was forced to use his own personal assets to keep up appearances. But as time went on, his personal wealth started to dwindle as well. Soon, he didn't have enough money to pay everyone, and the whole scheme came crashing down. The worst part of it all is that Madoff only ran this scam on rich people. He specifically targeted wealthy individuals and institutions. Why? Well, because he knew that they would have a lot of money to invest. These people were also busy managing their businesses or investing in other ventures. They didn't have time to look into Madoff's strategy, and they trusted him because of his reputation. Now here's something that you might not know. Even though Madoff's scheme was a classic Ponzi scheme, he never claimed to be generating those returns by investing the money. He claimed that the returns were generated from his secret trading strategies. But the problem was that these strategies never really existed. He was just using the money to pay off existing investors. But because of his reputation and the promise of steady high returns, people put their money in without questioning where it was going. You see, Madoff's manipulations of trust allowed him to create an illusion of legitimacy around his fraudulent practices. By projecting an image of a successful and respected investor, he was able to convince his clients that his operations were above board. This was despite the fact that he was not actually investing their money in any sort of viable or profitable ventures. Rather, he was simply using their funds to pay off earlier investors and line his own pockets. Despite all the red flags that should have raised suspicion, Madoff's clients, including some of the wealthiest and most sophisticated investors in the world, remained blissfully unaware of the true nature of his operations. This Ponzi scheme was actually the biggest one ever exposed. The amount of money that Madoff was holding was around $65 billion. To put that into perspective, that would be like the entire GDP of Portugal. But because of the trust that people placed in Madoff, they never asked questions and they never investigated further. They just blindly put their money in and walked away. I guess the moral of the story is that even the smartest people in the world can be fooled if they trust too much. If Madoff's clients had done their due diligence, they might have uncovered the truth about his shady past. He had been involved in several controversial incidents throughout his career. For example, he was fined by the SEC in the 1980s for improperly selling penny stocks. He was also linked to mob figures and organized crime. Despite this, his clients still trusted him and continued to put their money in. One of the reasons why he was able to get away with it for so long was because of the sheer complexity of his scheme. He used multiple layers of deception and concealment to hide the truth. By the time the fraud was finally uncovered, it was too late for many people. They lost everything, and their lives were turned upside down. What do you think? Why did people trust Madoff? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, consider checking out more content where you'll find a lot of interesting topics on money, business, and investing covered. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.